The journey of aging is often accompanied by a quiet, invisible shifting within our biological machinery, a shift that becomes particularly pronounced after the age of 60 when the body's metabolic fires begin to burn with a different rhythm, and the mechanisms that once regulated our blood sugar with effortless precision start to falter under the weight of time and cellular wear. It is in this delicate phase of life that the specter of type 2 diabetes often rises, not merely as a consequence of sugar intake, but as a complex physiological signaling failure where the cells stop listening to insulin, leaving glucose to drift dangerously in the bloodstream like a ship without a harbor. For the senior demographic, this is not just about numbers on a glucometer. It is about the preservation of vision, the protection of nerve endings in the feet, the maintenance of kidney function, and the safeguarding of the heart itself. While modern medicine offers a pharmaceutical arsenal to combat this condition, there exists a more ancient, potent, and biologically compatible pharmacy located within the soil of the earth, specifically in the form of deep green vegetables that possess the unique ability to communicate with our DNA and alter the trajectory of our metabolic health. We are not speaking of mere side dishes or garnish, but of powerful botanical interventions that can reverse insulin resistance, dampen systemic inflammation, and restore the body's ability to process energy efficiently. In this comprehensive exploration, we will delve into 5 specific green vegetables that science has identified as formidable allies for those over 60, breaking down exactly how they work at a molecular level to turn back the clock on diabetes. To understand why these specific vegetables are necessary, we must first establish the biological landscape of a body that has seen 6 decades of life, because the diabetes of a 30-year-old is structurally different from the diabetes of a 60-year-old. As we age, we naturally experience a phenomenon known as sarcopenia, the gradual loss of muscle mass, which is critical because muscle tissue is the primary consumer of glucose in the human body. Therefore, when we have less muscle, we have fewer storage tanks for sugar, leading to higher circulating levels even if our diet hasn't changed. This is why the dietary strategy for seniors cannot simply be about restriction or starvation, which leads to frailty, but must be about the addition of nutrient-dense compounds that actively repair these broken pathways. The green vegetables we are about to discuss act as metabolic signaling agents that can mimic the effects of fasting and exercise, activating pathways like AMPK, which tells the cell to open its doors to glucose independent of insulin, a mechanism that is essentially a biological bypass for a broken system. The first of these botanical powerhouses, standing at the forefront of the battle against high blood sugar, is spinach, a leafy green that is often underestimated due to its ubiquity, but holds within its cellular structure a profound mineral density that specifically targets the root cause of insulin resistance in the elderly. The magic of spinach lies not just in its fiber, but in its exceptional concentration of magnesium, a mineral that acts as a cofactor for over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body, including the very reaction that allows insulin to bind to its receptor on the cell surface. It is a scientific fact that a significant percentage of individuals with type 2 diabetes are chronically deficient in magnesium, and this deficiency is exacerbated by age and by the very diuretic medications often prescribed for blood pressure in seniors, creating a vicious cycle where low magnesium causes high blood sugar, and high blood sugar causes the kidneys to excrete more magnesium. Spinach steps into this breach as a natural chelator, delivering magnesium in a bioavailable form that the body recognizes and utilizes to repair the insulin receptors, effectively oiling the rusty hinges of the cell doors so that glucose can enter. Beyond its magnesium content, spinach is a rich source of alpha-lipoic acid, a potent antioxidant that has been shown in clinical settings to lower blood sugar levels and, perhaps more importantly for the senior population, to reduce the symptoms of peripheral neuropathy, the nerve damage that causes burning and numbness in the feet and hands. When a person over 60 consumes spinach, they are ingesting a compound that fights the oxidative stress generated by high blood sugar, effectively putting out the fires that damage the blood vessels. This vegetable works silently to reduce the stiffness of the arteries, a common complication in older diabetics, thereby addressing both the metabolic and cardiovascular aspects of the disease simultaneously. The thylakoids found in the chloroplasts of spinach leaves have also been studied for their ability to slow down the digestion of fat and carbohydrates, creating a time-release effect that prevents the sharp spikes in glucose that occur after a meal, which is crucial for preserving the remaining function of the aging pancreas. It acts almost like a natural gastric band, promoting satiety and ensuring that the sugar from the rest of your meal enters the bloodstream in a manageable trickle rather than a damaging flood. Integrating spinach into the diet of a senior requires an understanding of bioavailability because the aging digestive tract produces less acid and fewer enzymes, making the extraction of nutrients slightly more challenging. To maximize the anti-diabetic potential of spinach, it is best consumed lightly cooked or steamed rather than raw, as the heat breaks down the oxalic acid which can bind to minerals and block their absorption, while simultaneously collapsing the tough cellular walls to release the magnesium and antioxidants. A daily serving of wilted spinach, perhaps incorporated into a morning omelet or served alongside a piece of fish for dinner, provides a consistent baseline of protection, constantly replenishing the magnesium stores that the diabetes tries to deplete. This consistency is key because the metabolic correction offered by spinach is not a sudden jolt, but a gradual, cumulative restoration of cellular sensitivity, slowly teaching the body to handle carbohydrates again without panic. It is a gentle, nourishing intervention that respects the fragility of the senior physiology while exerting a powerful influence on the biomarkers of disease. Moving from the leafy, mineral-rich domain of spinach, we transition to a vegetable that operates with a more aggressive, enzymatic mechanism of action, a cruciferous giant that has been extensively studied for its ability to activate the body's own detoxification and antioxidant systems: broccoli. While spinach works primarily through mineral replenishment and absorption slowing, broccoli operates at the genetic level through a sulfur-containing compound called sulforaphane, which is generated when the vegetable is chopped or chewed. For the diabetic over 60, the greatest threat is not just the sugar itself, but the damage that sugar does to the inner lining of the blood vessels, known as the endothelium, leading to heart disease and stroke. Sulforaphane has been shown to activate a protein called NRF2, which acts as a master switch for the body's antioxidant defense, triggering the production of enzymes that protect the blood vessels from the corrosive effects of hyperglycemia. This is particularly relevant for seniors because the natural production of these protective enzymes declines steeply with age, leaving the blood vessels vulnerable to the jagged glucose molecules that scrape and inflame the arterial walls. Broccoli serves as a shield, reducing the production of reactive oxygen species in the mitochondria, the power plants of the cells, which are often overloaded and leaking toxic byproducts in the diabetic state. By calming this mitochondrial stress, broccoli helps to preserve the function of the cells and prevents them from dying prematurely, a process that is vital for maintaining the health of organs like the eyes and kidneys that are rich in mitochondria and highly susceptible to diabetic damage. Furthermore, broccoli is incredibly high in chromium, a trace mineral that works in tandem with insulin, helping to transport glucose into the cells. In fact, chromium picolinate is often sold as a supplement for diabetics, but the biological matrix of broccoli provides this mineral in a form that the body can regulate and absorb more safely and effectively. The fiber profile of broccoli is also distinct, consisting of tough, insoluble fibers that act as a prebiotic, feeding the beneficial bacteria in the gut microbiome. Emerging science suggests that the gut microbiome of diabetics is significantly different from that of healthy individuals, often populated by bacteria that extract more calories from food and drive inflammation. By consuming broccoli, seniors can shift this microbial population, cultivating a gut garden that produces short-chain fatty acids, which have been proven to improve immune function and lower blood sugar levels systemically. However, the preparation of broccoli is critical to unlocking its medicinal value for the aging body, as the enzyme myrosinase, which creates the magical sulforaphane, is heat-sensitive and can be destroyed by prolonged boiling. The ideal method for a diabetic senior to consume broccoli is to chop it and let it sit for 40 minutes before cooking, a technique known as hack and hold, which allows the enzymes to produce the sulforaphane before the heat is applied, or to steam it very lightly for no more than 3 or 4 minutes, so that it retains a slight crunch. This attention to detail transforms a simple vegetable into a therapeutic delivery system. For those with dental issues or difficulty chewing, which is not uncommon after 60, broccoli sprouts are an even more potent alternative, containing up to 100 times the sulforaphane of mature broccoli, offering a concentrated dose of medicine that can be easily blended into smoothies or soups without burdening the digestive system with excessive roughage. By making broccoli a staple, roughly 3 to 4 times a week, the older adult provides their body with a molecular signal that reduces the risk of vascular complications, effectively placing a protective coating over the cardiovascular system that is constantly under attack from fluctuating glucose levels. As we consider the combined impact of spinach and broccoli, we begin to see a multi-layered defense strategy forming. One vegetable managing the mineral cofactors and absorption rates, and the other protecting the cellular machinery and blood vessels from damage. This is the foundation of a diabetic reversing diet, moving away from the concept of deprivation and toward the concept of abundance, an abundance of protective phytochemicals that intervene in the disease process. But the garden has more to offer, and as we look deeper into the specific needs of the aging diabetic body, particularly regarding the health of the liver and the viscosity of the blood, we encounter other green giants that address these specific pathways. The liver, after all, is the primary regulator of blood sugar, responsible for releasing stored glucose when we sleep, and in type 2 diabetes, the liver often becomes leaky, dripping sugar into the bloodstream all night long, leading to those frustratingly high morning readings. We need vegetables that specifically target hepatic health and insulin clearance. This necessity leads us naturally to the next tier of our nutritional arsenal, where we look for vegetables that can interact with the liver and bile production, enhancing the excretion of cholesterol and fats, which often clog the liver and worsen insulin resistance. The connection between fatty liver and diabetes is undeniable, especially in the elderly where visceral fat tends to accumulate around the midsection. The vegetables we will discuss next are not just passive passengers in the digestive tract, but active agents of metabolic cleansing. We will explore how leafy greens with bitter profiles and specific fiber structures can bind to bile acids, forcing the liver to use up cholesterol to make more, thereby clearing the metabolic congestion that drives diabetes. This is a physiological housekeeping process that becomes slower with age, but can be revved up again with the right nutritional inputs. The synergy between these vegetables creates a compounding effect, where the benefits of one enhance the action of the other, creating a total internal environment that is hostile to diabetes and conducive to healing. Building upon the foundational defense established by spinach and broccoli, our exploration of the anti-diabetic botanical kingdom takes a turn towards the more robust, fibrous, and structurally complex vegetables that address the systemic complications of type 2 diabetes, particularly those that threaten the architectural integrity of the eyes, the nerves, and the kidneys. As we age, the battle against diabetes is not merely about keeping glucose levels low. It is about preserving the quality of life and preventing the slow erosion of our faculties. High blood sugar is essentially corrosive. It creates a syrupy, sticky environment in the bloodstream that slowly degrades the delicate microvasculature, the tiny capillaries that feed the retina and the nephrons of the kidneys. Therefore, the next tier of our nutritional strategy must focus on reinforcement and resilience, employing vegetables that act as biological armor for these vulnerable tissues. This brings us to the third champion of the green world, a leafy giant that has garnered immense popularity in recent years, but whose true medicinal value for the senior diabetic is often misunderstood or oversimplified: kale. Kale distinguishes itself from its softer cousin, spinach, by its sheer structural toughness and its profound density of specific carotenoids that are critical for the aging diabetic. While spinach provides the magnesium to unlock the cells, kale provides the ultimate protection for the eyes, which are often the first casualties of uncontrolled blood sugar. Diabetic retinopathy, a condition where high glucose levels damage the blood vessels and the retina, leading to vision loss, is a terrifying prospect for anyone over 60. Kale serves as a potent antidote to this risk because it is one of the richest natural sources of lutein and zeaxanthin, two antioxidants that accumulate specifically in the macula of the eye. You can think of these compounds as internal sunglasses or a biological shield that filters out harmful blue light and neutralizes the oxidative stress caused by glucose fluctuations. When a senior consumes kale regularly, they are effectively depositing a protective pigment into their eyes, thickening the macular density and creating a barrier against the degeneration that diabetes seeks to accelerate. This is not a quick fix, but a structural fortification of the visual system, preserving the ability to see clearly well into the later decades of life. Beyond vision, kale contains a unique fiber profile that is particularly effective at binding to bile acids in the digestive tract. This mechanism is crucial because the liver uses cholesterol to produce bile. When kale binds to this bile and escorts it out of the body, the liver is forced to pull more cholesterol from the bloodstream to replenish its supply. For the diabetic patient who often suffers from dyslipidemia, the trifecta of high triglycerides, high LDL, and low HDL, kale acts as a natural cholesterol regulator. Moreover, the specific type of fiber in kale slows down the transit of food through the stomach, a phenomenon known as delayed gastric emptying. For the elderly, whose digestion naturally slows, this might sound counterintuitive, but in the context of diabetes, it is a blessing. It means that the carbohydrates from the rest of the meal are trickled into the bloodstream at a glacial pace, flattening the glucose curve and preventing the postprandial spikes that are so damaging to the blood vessels. The presence of quercetin and kaempferol in kale further amplifies this effect. These are powerful flavonoids that have been shown to dampen chronic inflammation, the silent fire that burns in the background of every diabetic patient, contributing to insulin resistance and joint pain. However, the challenge with kale for the over 60 demographic is its texture. The raw, fibrous leaves can be tough on aging teeth and harder for a sluggish digestive system to break down, potentially leading to bloating or discomfort, which discourages consumption. To circumvent this, the preparation of kale must be treated as a culinary science. It should never be eaten raw by a senior with compromised digestion unless it has been massaged with olive oil and lemon juice to break down the cellulose walls, effectively predigesting it before it even touches the tongue. A better approach is to braise it slowly in bone broth, which softens the fibers while enriching the meal with collagen and amino acids that support gut lining integrity, or to bake it into crisp chips that offer the crunch of a snack without the carbohydrate load of a potato. By transforming kale into a palatable, digestible form, we ensure that its medicinal payload of vitamin K1, essential for blood clotting and bone health, and its eye-protecting carotenoids are fully absorbed, turning a rough piece of foliage into a refined instrument of health. Leaving the leafy canopy of kale, we descend to the ground level to examine a vegetable that is often maligned for its strong flavor, but is, in reality, a pharmacological treasure chest for the diabetic nervous system: Brussels sprouts. These miniature cabbages are members of the cruciferous family like broccoli, but they possess a unique concentration of alpha-lipoic acid, ALA, that sets them apart. We touched upon ALA briefly with spinach, but in Brussels sprouts, this compound acts in concert with a high sulfur content to target one of the most painful complications of diabetes: peripheral neuropathy. Many seniors with type 2 diabetes experience the tingling, burning, or numbness in their toes and fingers, a sign that the nerves are dying due to lack of blood flow and oxygen. Brussels sprouts provide the raw materials specifically needed to repair these nerve sheaths. The ALA found in these sprouts improves nerve conduction velocity and blood flow to the peripheral nerves, offering a nutritional strategy to mitigate pain and preserve sensation, which is vital for maintaining balance and preventing falls in the elderly. Furthermore, Brussels sprouts are exceptionally high in glucosinolates, the sulfur-containing compounds that give them their pungent aroma. While the smell might be off-putting to some, it is the smell of medicine. These sulfur compounds are the precursors to glutathione, the body's master antioxidant. As we age, our natural production of glutathione plummets, leaving our cells defenseless against the toxins and free radicals generated by high blood sugar. By consuming Brussels sprouts, we act as a supply chain manager, delivering the sulfur building blocks directly to the liver so it can synthesize more glutathione. This is critical for the kidneys, the filtration units of the blood. Diabetic nephropathy, or kidney damage, occurs when the kidneys are overworked trying to filter out excess sugar and toxins. The boost in glutathione provided by Brussels sprouts helps to protect the delicate renal cells from oxidative damage, preserving kidney function and delaying or preventing the need for dialysis. It is a vegetable that protects the body's filtration system, ensuring that the waste products of metabolism are efficiently removed rather than accumulating and causing further harm. The integration of Brussels sprouts into the senior diet also addresses the issue of satiety and weight management. Despite the frailty that can come with age, many seniors with type 2 diabetes struggle with visceral fat, the dangerous fat stored around the internal organs that secretes inflammatory cytokines and drives insulin resistance. The integration of Brussels sprouts into the senior diet also addresses the issue of satiety and weight management. Despite the frailty that can come with age, many seniors with type 2 diabetes struggle with visceral fat, the dangerous fat stored around the internal organs that secretes inflammatory cytokines and drives insulin resistance. To make them palatable and unlock their full potential, they should be roasted rather than boiled. Boiling Brussels sprouts not only releases the unpleasant sulfur smell into the air, but also leaches out the water-soluble vitamins. Roasting them at high heat caramelizes the natural sugars, creating a nutty, sweet flavor profile that masks the bitterness, while the addition of healthy fats like avocado oil aids in the absorption of the fat-soluble vitamins K and A. For a senior, a side dish of roasted, halved Brussels sprouts is not just a garnish. It is a dose of nerve-protecting, kidney-sparing medicine that actively fights the progression of their disease. As we analyze the combined power of these four vegetables, spinach, broccoli, kale, and Brussels sprouts, we see a comprehensive coverage of the diabetic pathology. We have magnesium for insulin sensitivity, sulforaphane for endothelial protection, lutein for eye health, and alpha-lipoic acid for nerve repair. But there remains a missing piece in this metabolic puzzle. We have discussed how to sensitize the cells and protect the organs, but we have not yet fully addressed the modulation of carbohydrate digestion itself at the enzyme level within the gut. We need a vegetable that acts as a gatekeeper, physically and chemically slowing down the breakdown of starches into simple sugars. This leads us to our final contender, a vegetable that bridges the gap between the garden and the legume family, offering a unique mechanism of action that essentially mimics the effect of certain anti-diabetic drugs by inhibiting the enzymes responsible for carbohydrate digestion. This final piece of the puzzle will complete the dietary protocol, offering a strategy that covers every angle of blood sugar management from ingestion to absorption to cellular utilization. The journey through these vegetables is also a journey through texture and taste, retraining the palate of the older adult to appreciate the bitterness and the earthiness of real food. The modern food environment is engineered to be hyperpalatable, overly sweet, and soft, which has contributed to the epidemic of diabetes. By reintroducing these complex, fibrous, and somewhat bitter vegetables, we are not just changing nutrients. We're changing the sensory experience of eating, signaling to the body that it is receiving fuel that requires work to digest, work that keeps the metabolic fire burning efficiently. The transition to the final vegetable in our list will solidify this concept, introducing a familiar yet powerful ally that is often overlooked because of its simplicity, yet holds the power to block starch absorption in a way that few other foods can. This leads us to the humble yet mighty realm of the legumes that masquerade as vegetables, specifically the green bean, and how its inclusion completes the nutritional shield against type 2 diabetes. We arrive now at the final pillar of our green pentagon, a vegetable that straddles the botanical boundary between a fresh green and a legume, offering a unique mechanism of action that complements the mineral density of spinach, the enzymatic power of broccoli, the structural protection of kale, and the nerve-repairing capabilities of Brussels sprouts. This fifth ally is the green bean, also known as the string bean or snap bean. While often dismissed as a mundane side dish, frequently boiled into a gray, mushy oblivion in cafeteria settings, the green bean in its vibrant, crisp state is a metabolic marvel for the aging diabetic. Its power lies not just in what it contributes, but in what it inhibits. Green beans contain specific enzyme blockers, albeit in milder concentrations than their dried kidney bean cousins, which interfere with alpha amylase, the digestive enzyme responsible for chopping complex carbohydrates into simple sugars. By consuming green beans, the senior diabetic effectively introduces a gentle brake system into their digestive tract, slowing the conversion of starches from other foods, like the potatoes or rice on the plate, into glucose. This is a form of natural portion control at the molecular level, ensuring that even if carbohydrates are consumed, their impact on the bloodstream is blunted and manageable. Beyond this starch-blocking capacity, green beans are exceptionally rich in silicon, a trace mineral that is often absent from discussions about diabetes, but is vital for the over 60 demographic. Silicon is a key component in the formation of connective tissue and bone density. Since individuals with type 2 diabetes are at a statistically higher risk for osteoporosis and bone fractures due to the inflammatory nature of the disease weakening the skeletal matrix, the inclusion of green beans serves a dual purpose, modulating blood sugar while simultaneously reinforcing the skeleton. This is the holistic beauty of food as medicine. It does not target a single symptom in isolation, but supports the entire organism. Furthermore, green beans are a source of soluble fiber, specifically pectin, which forms a gel-like substance in the gut. This gel traps cholesterol and slows glucose absorption. But perhaps more importantly for the senior, it aids in maintaining bowel regularity without the harshness of insoluble bran fibers that can irritate sensitive digestive tracts. It provides a gentle bulk that keeps the system moving, preventing the sluggishness that often accompanies both aging and diabetes. The preparation of green beans for the diabetic palate should focus on preserving their snap, which is the auditory signature of their structural integrity. Overcooking them destroys the heat-sensitive B vitamins, such as folate, which are crucial for lowering homocysteine levels, a compound often elevated in diabetics that damages heart vessels. The ideal method is a quick blanch followed by a sauté with garlic and slivered almonds. The addition of almonds provides healthy monounsaturated fats and a textural contrast, but functionally, the fat from the nuts further slows gastric emptying, enhancing the blood sugar stabilizing effects of the beans. This dish represents the perfect marriage of flavor and function, transforming a humble vegetable into a sophisticated tool for vascular and metabolic health. The addition of almonds provides healthy monounsaturated fats and a textural contrast, but functionally, the fat from the nuts further slows gastric emptying, enhancing the blood sugar stabilizing effects of the beans. This dish represents the perfect marriage of flavor and function, transforming a humble vegetable into a sophisticated tool for vascular and metabolic health. When a senior sits down to a meal that includes a generous portion of crisp green beans, they are eating a food that feels substantial and satisfying, combating the psychological hunger that often leads to snacking on processed foods later in the evening. Now that we have established the unique roles of spinach, broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts, and green beans, we must weave them together into a cohesive strategy, a green protocol, that is practical and sustainable for everyday life after 60. It is not enough to simply know that these vegetables are good. One must understand how to orchestrate them to create a constant state of metabolic protection. The goal is not to force a senior to eat all 5 every single day, which would be monotonous and daunting, but to create a rotation that ensures the body is constantly receiving these varied signals. Imagine a week where Monday and Thursday are mineral days focused on spinach-based meals to replenish magnesium. Tuesday and Friday are cellular defense days featuring broccoli and Brussels sprouts to boost antioxidant levels and protect the nerves. And Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday are structural days, utilizing kale and green beans to support the eyes, bones, and gut health. This rotation prevents palate fatigue and ensures a broad spectrum of nutrient coverage. Crucially, the concept of food synergy must be applied. These vegetables should rarely be eaten alone. They require the company of healthy fats, olive oil, avocado, nuts, or fatty fish to unlock their full potential because vitamins A, D, E, and K are fat-soluble. A steamed plate of plain broccoli is a missed opportunity. A plate of broccoli drizzled with high-quality extra virgin olive oil is a medical intervention. The oil acts as a carrier, ferrying the fat-soluble nutrients across the intestinal wall and into the bloodstream. For the diabetic senior, this addition of fat also provides satiety, signaling the brain that the body is nourished, which turns off the craving for sugar. Furthermore, the timing of these vegetables matters. Eating the green vegetable portion of the meal first, before the proteins and starches, acts as a physical barrier in the intestine. This strategy, known as nutrient sequencing, has been proven to lower post-meal blood sugar spikes significantly. By simply changing the order in which food is eaten, greens first, carbs last, a senior can achieve better glycemic control without changing what they eat, only how they eat it. This dietary shift must be framed not as a restriction, but as an expansion of culinary horizons. For many older adults, habits are deeply ingrained, and the idea of changing a lifetime of eating patterns can induce anxiety. Therefore, the approach should be gradual. It begins with crowding out rather than cutting out. Instead of focusing on removing the white rice or the bread, focus on adding a massive serving of garlic-roasted Brussels sprouts or a rich spinach salad. By filling the plate and the stomach with these nutrient-dense options, there is naturally less room for the refined carbohydrates that drive the disease. It is a psychology of abundance. We are adding color, texture, and flavor. We are adding vitality. The kitchen becomes a pharmacy, but one that smells of roasting herbs and fresh produce rather than antiseptic. This reframing is essential for long-term adherence because it relies on the pleasure of eating rather than the willpower to resist. Beyond the plate, this nutritional strategy serves as the foundation for a broader reclamation of health. When the body is fueled by these 5 potent vegetables, energy levels naturally stabilize. The afternoon crash, a common symptom of blood sugar fluctuation, begins to fade, replaced by a steady stream of vitality. This newfound energy is the currency that buys movement. A senior who feels energized is more likely to take that evening walk, to work in the garden, to play with grandchildren. This movement, in turn, sensitizes the muscles to insulin even further, creating a virtuous cycle where diet enables exercise, and exercise amplifies the benefits of the diet. It is a positive feedback loop that can reverse the downward spiral of frailty and disease. We're talking about a biological reset. While we cannot stop the chronological clock, we have the power to rewind the biological clock, influencing how our genes express themselves through the signals we provide. It is important to acknowledge that this journey requires patience. The damage of type 2 diabetes did not occur overnight. It was the result of decades of metabolic stress, and therefore, the healing process will not happen overnight. It takes time for the magnesium stores to replenish, for the nerve sheaths to repair, for the endothelial lining of the blood vessels to regenerate. But the body is forgiving. Even after 60 years, the human organism retains a miraculous capacity for self-repair if given the right tools. Every time a senior chooses a serving of kale over a serving of processed potato chips, they're casting a vote for their future self. They're sending a message to their DNA that says, "We are not done yet. We are still building, still repairing, still thriving." The clinical markers, the HbA1c, the fasting glucose, the lipid profile, will eventually reflect this internal shift, often surprising doctors with the magnitude of the improvement. However, the most profound change is not on a lab report. It is in the subjective experience of living. It is the clarity of mind that returns when the brain is no longer bathing in excess glucose. It is the steady hand, the sharp vision, the sensation of the ground beneath the feet. It is the confidence that comes from taking control of one's own physiology. Type 2 diabetes after 60 often feels like a sentence of slow decline, a surrender to a life of increasing medication and decreasing mobility. But the science of nutrition proves that this narrative is not inevitable. By harnessing the power of these 5 green guardians, spinach, broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts, and green beans, we unlock a path to a vibrant, active, and healthy third act of life. These vegetables are not magic bullets. They're something better. They are biological keys that fit the locks of our aging cells, opening doors to vitality that we thought were closed forever. As we conclude this comprehensive exploration, let this be a call to action for every senior and every caregiver. Do not underestimate the power of the produce aisle. The solution to one of the most pervasive health challenges of our time lies not just in a pill bottle, but in the soil. It is a solution that connects us to the earth and to the ancient wisdom of our biology. The diagnosis of type 2 diabetes is a warning light, yes, but it is also an invitation to pay attention, to care for the vessel that has carried you through 6 decades of life, and to nourish it with the respect it deserves. So, tonight, when you look at your plate, ask yourself, where's my green shield? Where's my medicine? Embrace these 5 vegetables, not as a chore, but as your allies in the noble fight for a life lived fully, right up to the very end. The power is in your hands, or rather, on your fork. Start today, for it is never, ever too late to heal.